Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems, Amazon TV, and YouTube. Join B Alan Bourgeois for today's show. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Indie Beacon Show. This is your host, B Alan Bourgeois. I have with me Blake Allwood, who is a writer of romance, but not the typical romance that you're probably expecting. We at Indie Beacon support all types of authors, and in this particular case, Blake writes gay romance novels. So welcome, Blake. We appreciate you being with us.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Good. Well, let's deal with the obvious. You're in an RV. Why?
So my husband and I were foster parents for many, many years, and when the last child moved out, we ran away from home, basically because if your kids can't find you, they can't move back in. So I live in a 40-foot Holiday Rambler RV now, very happily.
Now, is that one that gets towed by a truck or is self-driven?
No, it's self-driven, and we tow a car behind it.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I'm sure you've seen a lot of territory. You're originally from Tennessee, you've been in Texas, and you're now in Arizona.
Correct. Yeah, so we've been all over. The only place we haven't been yet is the Northeast, but it's on the agenda.
Hopefully when it's warmer.
When it's warmer and, there's not a plague trying to get us.
All right. So I'm sure that is giving you lots of material to write about, which is to say you've already got a lot of books as you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books. Is that correct?
6, and then there's one for free. So 6 published, and then I have a novella that I give for free.
All right. So let's start with the basic question. Why do you write these particular types of books?
Well, it started out, I'm a major romance fan anyway. I've loved Nora Roberts for years. If you remember, if your fans remember, back in the 1980s, there was an author by the name of Mary Stewart. She wrote The Gabriel Hounds, The Crystal Cave. And I was in high school, and my librarian, somehow she knew I would love romance. So she stuck Mary Stewart's books in my hand, and I fell in love early with the genre. Fast forward many years later, we have several foster children that are living with us, and they don't quite we had a couple that came out of the closet as gay, and they didn't quite understand the process of being in a relationship. So I used the writing to teach them basic relationship advice, because you're not going to listen to your parent for relationship advice. And the books sort of helped, or the short stories I wrote for them sort of helped. And then I got the bug.
And from that, you've written several novels. So which was your first one that you wrote?
Well, the first one I wrote hasn't come out yet, but the first one I published is called Aiden Inspired. And it's about a guy that lived in Kansas City, grew up in Kansas City, he's an artist, moved to New York and found out he doesn't like the big city, and was seeking out a relationship with someone in the country, and ended up in Eastern Washington, of all places. And so that was book 1.
Now, the obvious question, since you are gay, how many of these have some reality from your life involved in it?
I think if you ask any author, their reality is in all of the books they write, because we write from experience. I've never lived in New York City, and I've never lived in Eastern Washington, but I certainly would have struggled living in the city. I'm a country boy through and through. So I related to Aiden in that way. And then now I seek out, when we travel around, we seek out small towns. So in that way, I think I relate to Aiden.
And then what was your next book?
So the next book is Susie Empowered, and she is Aiden's sister, and it's actually a straight romance. It was the first and only book I wrote. But after watching television and seeing some people going through a difficult time with abuse from their childhood, or sexual assault, I wanted to write something to speak to that. And so Susie Empowered is kind of a fun, lighthearted way of addressing a serious issue.
Okay. It's interesting that that's the only straight book. Do you have any plans on doing more, or what?
That was the hardest book I wrote. You know, you write what you know, again. But I had to have a lot of help. I had several editors and advisors who stepped in and helped me see things from a female's perspective. And it helped. But yeah, it was hard. I do have one that I have started. We'll see where it goes.
I know they say that gay men, and I'm with you on that, is that we're able to tap in more on the female side than a straight person could. So was that not a little helpful for you?
I'm still a guy, and that's, you know, it gets in the way when you're trying to write a novel from a female perspective. I do think it helped some. You know, most of my friends are female, and so they have educated me over the years. But again, I'm still a man, so I still kind of see things that way.
I understand. With my female characters, most of them were lesbians, so I kind of felt that was a little easier on me. So,
I have a sister. I have a sister who is a lesbian. I don't know that I could write that book. I would have to lean on her a lot.
Which is no problem as long as you don't include her, right?
Well, probably. She'll probably whip my butt.
All right, so we got a couple minutes left. What was your next one after that?
So the third book, and that's kind of a loose series. The third book was Bobby Transformed. And Bobby is a really lighthearted book. I did write this for my gay male fans. A lot less emotion, a lot less description, much more centered on what my guy friends have asked for. But it's about a Iowa pig farmer. I went to college in Iowa. And it's about an Iowa pig farmer who ends up in New York City, of course. And it deals with his transitions from the country to the city. And then also he's a writer. He writes graphic novels, and the love interest is a publisher who has a lot of issues. So it's a lot of ups and downs. But those three books go together. Aiden Inspired, Susie Empowered, and Bobby Transformed. And you see the characters mingle in the books too.
So I've got
they all are standalone.
That hits a little close to home there.
In what way?
Well, having a publisher with some difficulty, you know, dealing with a gay novel and stuff, or gay.
Well, I married a nurse, so I didn't have to deal with marrying my publisher. I couldn't imagine that working out very well. It didn't, by the way. It was hard for Bobby and Liam to deal with that. It was fun to write.
A quick question before we take our break. You have some great artwork on your cover. How did you find the artists for those?
So the artwork for Aiden and Susie was done by Kate Ashwood. And Kate is this fantastic graphic designer. Just got lucky. A few of the other author friends of mine referred me to her, and I just fell in love with her work. Bobby, I ran up on this graphic designer and comic book artist, and he drew the cover for Bobby for me, which was phenomenal and awesome, and it was a great experience. His name's Ian, and he's from Germany and does not speak English, so that was quite a challenge for us to get over. But I think it ended up being a really fun cover in the end.
Yeah, it definitely looks playful, so a lot different than the other two for sure.
But I will say, Bobby, today I spent the entire day re-editing Bobby. He's going to come back out with a new cover, and that's going to be probably next year, and then Bobby's going to go on sale, and it's going to be quite a big hoo-ha. But it was time to give Bobby a facelift. So
the same artist?
No, it'll be Kate. Kate designed this one.
Okay.
The same
Well,
as
this
the
is a perfect spot for us to go ahead and take a break and let our sponsors do their thing. We'll be right back.
Authors Marketing Guild, a membership-owned company where authors can learn how to better market and sell their books. Join us at authorsmarketingguild.com.
Factor 7, the newest thriller by author J.D. May, will keep you turning the pages with mystery, betrayal, lies, and infidelity. Ripped from the headlines, Factor 7 follows two prominent doctors who uncover a clandestine plot to spread a bioweapon with a 98% mortality rate. Journey with them as they experience a world of murder, power, intrigue, and corruption, where it becomes deadly clear that exposing the truth is just as dangerous as the weapon they seek to expose.
Hi, I'm Rox Berkey. I write the Enigma series with my co-author. We write as Brakefield and Berkey. Today we have 12 books in this series, with The Enigma Threat being the newest release on January the 8th of 2021. It's an exciting book that goes to the next generation, and we hope that you'll check it out and all the other books in the Enigma series. Thank you.
Do you send book sales to a company that takes most of your money? Do you want a bookstore that supports you? Want to earn more money from your book sales? Introducing a bookstore for indie authors and small press only. Earn up to 80% of your book sales and learn how to better market yourself. Join the 150 authors already signed up to earn their fair share at b4r.store. Welcome back to the Indie Beacon Show. Please follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our channel on YouTube or your favorite podcast system.
Hi, and welcome back. This is your host, B Alan Bourgeois, and we are either watching or listening to the Indie Beacon Show. We have Blake Allwood with us, who's been talking about his novels. We've talked so far about the first three, which was Aiden Inspired, Susan Empowered, and Bobby Transformed. So you have two more, actually four more to go from there. So tell us, what was the next one?
So the next one is Romantic Renovations, and it's a standalone novel. It was inspired. I was watching one of the late night programs that come on Do It Yourself Network, I think is where I saw this one. And these two guys were renovating a house and they just hated each other. And it turned into quite a fiasco. And so I was totally inspired by that, and I wanted to write a suspense romance. And being able to use that tension from that show that I watched, I was able to create this suspenseful novel. And Romantic Renovations is the name of it, and it's set in Seattle.
I'm sorry, it's set where?
Seattle, Washington.
Okay. And is that one of those towns you've yet to visit?
We lived, oh gosh, I lived there over the winter. Our first winter in the RV, we foolishly thought, oh, it'll be 40 degrees in Seattle, Washington. Oh, what's a little rain? I was not prepared for the rain that they get in Seattle, Washington. I'd much rather have the snow and the 20-degree temperatures.
I've been there for both of those, the rain and the snow. So
it was not for me. Made a bad choice. Seattle's great in the summer. It's a wonderful place to be in the summer.
Yes, it is. So then I'm guessing Another Chance with Love, or Love by Chance, which was the next one after that?
So Love by Chance came next. And that was it was actually the second book I ever wrote. But when I first I started a Facebook group under Blake Allwood, my pen name. And I immediately began getting these older gay gentlemen who were sending me questions like, Dear Abby, how do I have a better relationship? And I'm like, listen, I write romance. It's all imaginary. I get to create it to be exactly what I want it to be. It's not actually real. But I have been in a 25-year marriage, so that does help. So I wrote, the one thing I found from these gentlemen is that over and over, they kind of self-sabotaged their relationships. And I kept bringing that up. And then I thought, well, gosh, you know, this is just like when I started writing with my foster children. Maybe I would do better just to write a story. And so Love by Chance is actually a response to that, and about how if you don't get out of your own way, you can destroy a perfect relationship. And so that was that one. The bad part of Love by Chance's relationship, the main character's boyfriend that broke up with them, is actually the main character in Another Chance for Love, which is the second book in that series. And they're both standalone, but they are linked together. And that is my second suspense romance that I wrote. And at this moment, my most popular book. So.
Well, I'm curious because it has a baby on the cover. So
it does.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
So there's LGBTQ plus. So there's a lot of different letters in that alphabet soup. And I wanted to start reaching out and pulling in some of the different characters. So I won't write books for lesbians because I just don't, it's not going to be something I can write well. However, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer, I want to try to reach out and work with those different sides of that story. So the main character in that book is bisexual, and he ends up having a baby with his best friend when they had a drunken night when they were young. So the story is about him coming out of the closet as a bisexual man, plus dealing with having a brand new newborn, literally a few days old baby, and then learning to love someone else at the same time. Of course, the baby is part of the suspense too. I won't give any more away than that.
And that I'm sure you're drawing from being a foster parent, being able to pull that information and that feeling from that.
You're right. So I had, the very last foster child I had was a 2-year-old baby who had a real similar bad story. Now the story that's in my book isn't his story in any way, but it did prepare me for writing a story about a child who was put in danger by its parents. So definitely. But you know, the great thing about romance novels, no matter how horrible it is, no matter how many people die, no matter what the horrible story is, in the end, it ends happily every single time. So another reason I love that genre.
So then you have romantic renovations. That's your next one after those, right?
So romantic renovations was the one that came out after the first series. Tenacious is my novella, and that came out. That's the last one I put out, and it's free to anyone who goes to my website and signs up, BlakeAllwood.com, and signs up for my newsletter. The stuff I don't understand in any way whatsoever will direct you to how to get that free, and you can sign up for it. And I think you can do it through our website here too, can't we?
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to. But I want to go back to renovations. So tell us about that.
Okay. So the character had been homeless. He was homeless. His grandfather was kind of cold. I didn't have much to do with him. But when he passed away, it ended up he was a multimillionaire with multiple properties in his portfolio. And so this kid went from homeless to just barely not homeless to owning the largest real estate portfolio in Seattle. And then he connects with a company that like HGTV, not them, but like HGTV that says, hey, why don't you renovate these houses on the television? So he ends up having a horrible fallout with his partner, like I told you earlier. The partner ends up being the antagonist. And then he meets his celebrity crush. We all have a celebrity crush. In this day and age, most of us do at least. And so his celebrity crush ends up being his partner to renovate this house. And so it's all kinds of really great drama about how he deals with that and how he's able to connect with him. Of course, you know, it's a romance novel, so it all ends happily, but I make them work really hard for it.
We're going to get back to Tenacious when we come back from the break, so we can talk a little bit more about that, and again, remind people how they can get a copy of it. But right now, we're going to go ahead and stop, let our sponsors do their thing, and we'll be right back.
What would you do if you had to put your life on hold to care for a loved one? Well, during COVID, almost all of us have been doing just that. I'm Charlotte Canyon, award-winning author, actress, and speaker. And my book, You Have to Laugh to Keep From Crying, shows you how you can revive, thrive, and survive with 4 golden rules. You have to love one another. You have to respect one another. You have to have patience with one another. And most of all, you've got to forgive one another. I'm Charlotte Canyon, and I approve this message.
Lone Star Festival, a Texas-sized event. Meet authors, artists, and Texas musicians in the city of Seguin on May 29, 2021. Sponsored by Will Seguin, Coffee Shop, Authors Marketing Guild, B4R.store, and Dear Texas. Produced by Texas Authors Institute of History. Join us and get your free tickets online at lonestar.book. Join us for the 6th Annual Authors Marketing Event in Granbury, Texas on July 23rd to the 25th, 2021, where authors share ideas and learn from the professionals over a 2-day weekend. Receive your book marketing certification from the only organization in the world that has been doing it for 5 years, Authors Marketing Guild, a membership-based organization that supports authors from around the world. Learn more at ame.authorsmarketingguild.com. Sponsored by indielector.store, a bookstore that pays authors their fair share. Welcome back to the Indie Beacon Show. Please follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our channel on YouTube or your favorite podcast system.
And welcome back. This is your host, B Alan Bourgeois. You're watching Indie Beacon Show, and I have Blake Allwood. We've been talking about his many novels, all romance novels and all gay-themed novels, except for one. There is one stray one in there. We'll let you guess which one it is if you've been watching the show. At the end of the last segment, we were talking about Tenacious. It is a free novella that you're giving away to people who sign up for your newsletter. But before we explain how to do that, tell us a little bit more about the story.
Okay, so you know, I haven't been back to Tennessee since I was 18. I moved away. I went to college in Iowa, and then I moved to Kansas City for 25 years, and then that's when we ran away from home. So I wanted to reach back into my roots, and I did that with Tenacious. It's about, it's a really, I wanted to have a lot of fun with this one. So the main character ends up finding the guy of his dreams, and of course, he's drunk when he does so, and ends up throwing up all over the character that he wanted to be in love with. And then, it just kind of spirals down from there. The other main character's ex-boyfriend is absolutely evil. And of course, he just creates all kinds of havoc. It's just a great, grumpy, tough romance novel that in the end ends perfectly.
And so for people to get it for a free copy, what do they need to do and what's the website?
So there's a couple ways you can do it. I think we can go through, you can go through my website, blakeallwood.com, and you can just sign up there, or you can go through my links with you guys, and they can sign up for to get it there as well. It is a 45,000 word novella, so it's almost a novel, but it's still a pretty short read.
Okay. And realizing we're still in the COVID aspect and stuff, are there plans for you to be at events in 2021?
No, unfortunately, I am very quarantined. So I live in a senior area. They let us move in here, I think, more than anything because my husband's an ER nurse. But I live around a lot of very vulnerable people, so I'm not allowed really to get out and do too much. And I also have about 6 more novels that I'm at different stages of editing that I'm trying to get done before the new year. So I'm pretty much locked in.
That's a lot of work ahead of you with 6 novels.
Yes, and I will say this before we go, the next 3 is a series, the first series that I've written that you follow one after the other. It's not standalone. And it's from Big Bend National Park. I fell head over heels in love with Big Bend National Park, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's on the southern border of Texas and Mexico, where the Rio Grande runs through. And it is enormous park out in the middle of the desert. And so I have I call it a millennial cowboy novel. But it's a paranormal, my first paranormal romance. And it starts out with 3 soldiers from the Civil War who move out to Fort Davis and end up in Big Bend area in a town that I made up. It's not a real town, but it's that area. And after a lot of research, I think it's going to be pretty fun. But then the men who moved to Big Bend end up being the ancestors of the main characters, and they're haunting them, but it ends up being to try to keep them from dying. So it's a good thing, not a bad.
And when do you hope to have that released?
Probably January.
Just 1 or all 3?
Probably 1 at a time. The goal is to do January, February, and March. One after the other.
Together.
Yeah, that's the goal. But you know, there's still quite a bit of editing to do. So we'll see. No promises.
All righty. Well, with that, we're at the end of the show. I want to thank you very much for your time and your energy. We look forward to seeing what the new books have. 6 of them coming out in roughly the next few months to a year's period of time, plus all the 6 that you currently have out. So lots of work out there for people to get their teeth into and enjoy the read and stuff. Thank you very much, Blake, for being with us, and we wish you the best of luck.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for watching the Indie Beacon shows, produced by B Alan Bourgeois for the Authors Marketing Guild, LLC, copyright 2021. Voiceover by Randy James and B Alan Bourgeois. If you would like to be a sponsor of this show, please reach out to us at info@authorsmarketingguild.com. If you'd like to be on the show, please complete the form at radio.authorsmarketingguild.com. Music is Always Rejoice by Rampart of Ukraine.